Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of our ReadyTech remote control series for employment services. We're really excited to introduce you to Dr. Darren Coppin, who'll be joining me today and facilitating much of today's presentation. Morning, Darren.
Good morning.
For those of you whom I've not met, my name's James Horn. I am the Commercial Director at JobReady, one of the ReadyTech brands. And we are, as I said, into episode 2 for our remote control series. And the purpose of our remote control series is to try and bring as much information, as much value and support to you, both our clients and to the broader market, as we work through what are fairly extraordinary times, and really try and bring together a number of topics and conversations that help prepare and facilitate your businesses as they move and evolve and grow and I suppose change into this new digital world that we've found ourselves in, probably a little bit sooner than what we'd all expected. So we had last week's discussion, which was about digital engagement with job seekers. Today is very much around thriving in our new environment. And I've spoken with many of you outside of this forum, discussing, what things that you guys are trying to do and trying to implement to make sure that business is not just ready and prepared to respond, but set up for success, both in the current environment we find ourselves in, but out the other side. I think it's important to know and understand that this is temporary, and we need to make sure that our businesses are positioned really well, or as well as they could be, so that we can start to operate at a really high level out the other side of COVID-19. So today's session will be roughly 35 to 40 minutes of content, at which point we'll spin out into a Q&A session. I'll be facilitating the Q&A session, so I encourage you strongly to send all of those questions that you've been dying to ask Dr. Coppin for a long time. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A option. So some of those questions will be, it'll be relevant for us to interject and handle those on the fly, but for most of them we will park those and address them at the end. There's also a live chat. I'll also be facilitating that as we go through the presentation today. And we'll be looking to wrap this up about 2:45, 10 to 11, depending on how enthusiastic those questions are. So, Dr. Coppin, how are you, firstly?
Well, I was okay until I just saw your photo there of the presenters. And I was going to complain that yours is in colour and not in black and white. But then I realised I'm very pallid and grey, so mine's actually in colour as well. You just look a lot healthier. So I was okay.
That was deliberate. But are you coping well in these circumstances?
Yeah, loving it. With the kids running around and focus and not spending time on trains, it's actually not too bad at the moment. So we'll see. I can see we've had a comment already as well. I'm not even going to look at that.
I already like Tony. Tony shares my sentiments, so that's good. Okay, so Darren, do you just want to introduce Isha House quickly before we dive into the topic for today?
Yeah, as pretty much most of the attendees will know, Isha House is a behavioural science firm that focuses only on employment and education. I've been in it for 20 odd years. I know, to look at me, you wouldn't think that, but amazingly. And it's been, there's just some remarkable insights out there from all the data, academic literature that we can bring into practical, everyday frontline operations to try and support the marketplace. And it's just been great fun wherever we've worked with clients. It's just been brilliant working with them, learning from them. And of course, we're part of the ReadyTech group, so you're my sister, as it were.
By birth as well.
Yeah.
Yes, good. And I think you're right. I think many, if not everyone on today's session will have either come across Isha House or yourself over the last 15, 20 years. So, okay, today's topic, how can we thrive in the new economy? And there's a lot to unpack there, and you've got a lot of insight, a lot of content to go through today. So I think two things that I want to just point out. First is today's session is recorded, and we'll be circulating this. It will likely be tomorrow morning after we cut out all of Darren's bloopers. And the second point is that we'll also be sharing the slide deck from today. Of course, they will be available from the ReadyTech remote control website where most of you registered. So if you go back there, you'll find today's session as well as last week's session. And at the end of today, we'll cover off some of the topics that we've got scheduled for the next few weeks. So Darren, I might just throw it to you now to take us through this in detail.
All right, thanks for the intro and setting this up, James. So I'll turn off my video as well so that my face isn't blocking off some of the lovely slides that we've got, and I'll turn it back on again for the Q&A. There we go, that's better, isn't it? Now look, welcome everyone. I'm incredibly heartened and impressed that you're taking a moment out of this heads down phase of pivoting your organizations to get your heads up to really start to proactively plan for the future of your organization and our sector as a whole. Some of you may already be thinking this way. Let me just get the monitor working. There we go. You're probably thinking, if you play this wrong, it's a huge threat to your viability. But if you play it right, it's a great opportunity for you, your organization, and the sector. But either way, notwithstanding COVID-19 messing things up in terms of timings for reviews of DES, the new employment services trials, and maybe even impacting on the new job active, there are some clear things that will change, can change, and should change in this sector for the better. It's all in your hands. So what I wanted to do is segment this webinar into three parts. We'll look briefly at what's different and what's going through your heads at the moment. We'll look at job seeker considerations, the reason why most of you dialed in, and then we'll look in the final part at staff considerations. And what you're going to deal with at the moment is succinctly put together in this chart, this data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and Roy Morgan, that in early March, we had just over 1 million job seekers unemployed in Australia, 650,000 of those on job active. By the end of March, ABS estimated that there were 2.4 million job seekers, and 700,000 of those, I've just been told that the sound is crackly as well, so I'll try and improve things for you a smidgen. 700,000 new job active claimants. They haven't obviously all come through yet. They'll really start dripping through in April and then really hitting you in May and June. That's one of the key things that you're going to have to deal with. Let's have a look at, I suppose, what you're having to grapple with, react to, forecast, and deal with at the moment in an unprecedented number of impacts to our sector. First of all, there's a huge amount of working from home impacts and staying at home impacts for our job seekers. There's no mutual obligation at the moment. That's impacting what and how we do it. Let me just check the chats as well. Now, what's weird, is it all crackly, my talking, by the way?
That's much better, DC. I think you sorted it, whatever you did. So
I prayed that the lightning would stop, and it seems to have worked.
Perfect.
Well, you're obviously going to have to deal with larger caseloads and harder caseloads. Your existing caseload will kind of be pushed to the bottom of the pile of re-employment. It's often last out, first back in terms of re-employment. And then you've got a lot of considerations for the new caseload that you're dealing with. We're already considering and grappling with this digital first policy. And this isn't really a criticism of the sector, but rather an observation that the workforce has to be incredibly skilled and multi-skilled in the employment services sector. They have to deal with compliance, almost be an outsourced government agency, but also deal with psychological issues, practical issues, vocational, debt issues, all of these sorts of things we're all having to deal with. So I don't know an industry where people have less time to get trained up as frontline workers. But a lot of the issue with that, or the reason for it, is funding. And whilst you might be seeing a doubling of caseload, you certainly won't be seeing a doubling of funding. So that's something that you're having to grapple with and deal with. And there are going to be fewer jobs out there initially. There might be a second wave of redundancies, or people that are on JobKeeper will find that they've got no jobs to return to. And that means fewer outcomes, which has an impact on your revenue. That's a lot on your plates at the moment. But there are some positives here. We can turn this on its head somewhat, and there's been some great positives out of working from home that I'll touch upon soon. Obligation will return. Can you imagine if it returns next month? We know it's been extended until the 22nd of May, quite a quiet announcement that. Obligation will return, and this gives you a time to gear up and be able to deal with your existing caseload and work out how you're going to deal with new Stream A's and new DES participants that are signing on. So that larger caseload and doubling of caseload obviously doesn't mean a doubling of revenue, but we've got to be grateful that there's probably more contract security than you've ever had in your career in terms of the department, the government needing our services, needing us to support and service all of those Australians, the extra million Australians that are job seekers now. So I put this in, and there's old Ben Franklin on the $1 note, who said that out of adversity comes opportunity, and it feels a bit trite. But I really do think, and I even put my name to this, because I really feel strongly that you will never have in your lifetime a better opportunity to change things for the better. Yes, personally, but most particularly professionally and within your organisations in this sector. So are we likely to return to pre-COVID models if restrictions are lifted and lockdowns lifted? No. And this is an amazing opportunity to shake up a working environment that sees 30 to 40% of staff turnover a year. I've said it before and I'll repeat it. Coal mining in Australia has staff turnover of 6%. What on earth is going on in our sector to see 30 to 40% staff turnover? Compared to most sectors, our changes are minor. Thank God we're not working in services, restaurants, airlines. We're really quite lucky in terms of what we need to do. All this is doing is speeding up what you were thinking of doing anyway, I'm sure. It's an opportunity to make the changes you always wanted, but we have to be quick, as in Australia, we could be closer to the lifting of most lockdown conditions than we are to the imposition of those lockdown conditions. So what I want you to do during this webinar, you can switch off a bit if you want, or over the weekend, is really think about what is it you always wanted to improve about your role, your job, your organisation. There's a few things that I've been speaking to some leaders and case managers in the sector, and they've been coming up with, well, it'd be lovely to move away from activation, which is really compliance, and move closer towards assistance. Genuine assistance for people. It would be better to move towards manageable caseloads, but how can we do that when we're going to have an influx of job seekers? It would be nice to have more keen job seekers. Will the new Stream A's and DES participants be keener? Will the existing caseload be keener? And I've had some commentators in the industry say that actually engagement seems to be up. Those job seekers that I might have expected not to turn up for a one-to-one face-to-face are actually picking up the phone to me, and we're actually having a session with them. Engagement is perversely up, but it's an opportunity for less empathetic interventions. Empathy is one of the greatest strengths of our case managers, but similarly, it's also an issue in that empathy is draining. It's one of the key reasons for burnout and turnover in our sector. And empathy can become sympathy, which makes our participants less proactive. It has the opposite effect. So we can look at this opportunity to potentially upskill staff with online training, more automated servicing, and more automated churn of revenue for Stream A's could be the only way of dealing with the influx that we're expecting. And personalised interventions. Actually, we can become more personalised during this time and provide real support for Streams B, C's, and D's. These are the things that have been coming back to me of what people want to improve. This weird environment that we find ourselves working in is a great opportunity for that. Now, we spent a lot of time studying last year how likely people were to engage with digital first online self-servicing, and that color-coded chart shows that a third of people were really up for it, of job seekers, regardless of stream. 20%, well, they're up for it if you nudge them a bit, and nearly half, 47%, just wouldn't engage with online self-servicing, no matter their level of digital literacy. One of the good things to come out of this is that green proportion has increased substantially. We haven't got a definitive measure of it yet, but everyone's having to engage online on their smartphones much more, and that is an opportunity for us. It's a change in consumer habits. Let's have a look at the reasons why most of you dialed in today, some job seeker considerations and understanding the behavioural profile of your new caseload. Some of you will be familiar with this terminology through our Cortex platform of where we measure people's genuine commitment and proactivity to getting a job, which helps inform our employment service providers exactly what to do with that job seeker to move them towards employment. And this is our historical measure. This is with tens of thousands of Australians across schemes such as Job Active Des, Transition to Work, Path, etc. 26%, a quarter of your caseload, are really up for a job. They're in action. 19% are in preparation. Yeah, maybe I really want a job, but maybe I need some support from this employment service provider to refine what I'm doing. 22% of your caseload are in unauthentic action. They're doing everything to get a job, but something's really undermining their true desire to get a job. These are the people that are likely to drop out of work once they've got a job. 14% of your caseload are in contemplation. I'll get around to getting a job, maybe in 6 months' time, I know I should. And 19%, a full fifth of your caseload are in pre-contemplation. Absolutely no intent, desire, or confidence at the moment of getting a job. They're just there to rubber stamp the compliance so they don't get sanctioned. So that's the historical data, but let's have a look at what's happened in the last month with your caseload. Action has plummeted to 16%. People that proactively really trying to get a job has, as you might have predicted, dropped 16%, and more people are in the preparation. I'm a little bit hesitant. I need some support to get a job. But this was really surprising. Unauthentic action, people that are either, this is a blooper, but bullshitting themselves or the system that they're really, or their families that they're really committed to getting a job, but they're not really, that's halved. People are actually more authentic, and they've moved substantially into contemplation and pre-contemplation. People are giving up at the moment trying to get a job. So pre-COVID, over the last 5 years, it's about 33% of your caseload was pessimistic and passive. Now it's 49%. Now that's before the big influx of new claimants, but that has a profound effect on your case managers and what you need to do with people. Let's have a look at what the profile of the new caseload might be. Stream A's and new Des. We know there's going to be high numbers to deal with, and we know that they have a relatively low experience of unemployment generally. They're not used to being unemployed, kicking their heels at home. They haven't built a perverse kind of resilience, being able to cope with it, which has an impact on their anxiety and likelihood of scarring and having mental health issues going forward, unless we put in place things now to address that. They often have higher debt than new caseload. They've got high mortgages. They just bought in January a new boat. So they've got higher levels of debt than your existing caseload, which does exacerbate anxiety. And there are fewer job opportunities. Yes, if lockdown's lifted, things will open, but it won't be to the same level. And some firms that have just been hanging on by a thread might not be able to survive long term, particularly in retail and the services sector. So we've got an issue of hope. Australia didn't even officially have a recession after the GFC. There was always hope that we're a lucky country and there are jobs out there if you really want them. Now it's going to be more difficult, and it'll be down to your staff to deal with this, to instill some hope, but also deal with the anxiety and anger that will be coming back at your staff at times. So you need to furnish your staff with ways of dealing with that anger. Yes, the new caseload, the influx, is kind of a marketing opportunity. You can't afford to spend a lot of time with them, but in 3 months' time, when you start to get higher amounts of funding for supporting them into work, you need to do the groundwork now to get that caseload loyal to you as a provider. So there's low revenue for outcomes at the moment, and there'll be lower revenue for outcomes with fewer outcomes going forward, potentially. But you have to be able to manage that caseload on that lower revenue. We've spoken to some new stream A's, and there's a high level of pride and embarrassment. In fact, the number of people coming through to Job Active and DES is lower than the number of people that have been made redundant, because a lot of them are sitting it out, they think they'll bounce back, and they're too embarrassed to go to Centrelink. They've never had to rely on the government for anything before. When they do come to you in another month's time or so, then they'll be at their wits' end at that point. And you've got relatively low resources to service. It's been difficult enough managing the existing caseload. And as I implied before, you're not going to be doubling your number of staff because you've got a double number of caseload. So let's have a look at our existing caseload, particularly of stream B, Cs, and DES. There are a couple of considerations here. Data suggests that we need to manage and support this existing caseload because they're likely to be pushed to the bottom of the pile of re-employment. So it's going to be even more difficult, if you like, or you need to be more refined and specialist in how you support that existing caseload. But also data over the last 50 years suggests that there's a higher likelihood of a sustained outcome in a recession, and we will hit a recession. People are likely to stick to their jobs more. We know 59–60% of DES participants drop out of a new job in the first year. That number is likely to go down because there are fewer jobs out there. People just become stickier in jobs during a recession. But young people, and I haven't really got an answer yet to this, but they're going to be hit the hardest. They're, yes, more psychologically flexible. They might not have worked yet, so it's not hitting them psychologically so much. And they're more authentic. Young people are a lot less likely to be in unauthentic action. They're genuine in saying they're really up for a job or want to learn stuff. And they're used to education. So putting them through courses, pivoting, helping them join the gig economy may be a solution. But we have to come up with solutions for young people because it's going to hit them even harder. So we've looked at how do you engage with your job seekers if there's lower or less mutual obligation. And we've looked at something called self-determination theory. But really what we're answering, rather than those fancy psychobabble words, is how to get a job seeker to even pick up the phone when there's no obligation. There are really 8 key tips we've found in the literature for this. And it's key because there's more pressure on providers to enhance the marketing approach of cultivating large prospect lists, you could call them, nurturing those contacts so they come back to you and they're loyal to you. You've got to play a numbers game and deal with a small number of clients who are going to take up 80% of your time. We've always had this, but it's going to be made worse in the current situation where isolated people who haven't spoken to anyone for 3 weeks get on the phone to your EC and they talk to them for 2 hours about everything that's happening. What are the tips and techniques for cutting that short because you've got another 12 calls to make that day just to service your existing caseload? There's complex psychology at play, not just for job seekers, but in particular for your employment consultants, your case managers. But there are some very clear tips from this self-determination theory. First of all, you've got to personalize correspondence somehow, even if you've got another 10,000 stream A's suddenly on your books in the next 2 months. That means in your text, worksheets, on the phone, using a first name always makes us lift our heads up when somebody says our first name, and it instills in a job seeker a sense of ownership and autonomy. If it's Dear John in a text, Dear John, I'm going to chat to you in 2 weeks' time at this time, it does have a positive impact. Aligning your ECs with the job seekers is absolutely essential for engagement. Warm and friendly statements such as "I'm here, you need to be" are important, but also saying little things that when I was unemployed, it fosters a feeling of being cared about, but also being in the in-group of the job seeker. A lot of the time they think you have no idea what I'm going through. And if you say, yeah, when I was unemployed, I did blah, 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 it actually gives you a huge amount more credibility with that job seeker and bonding and alignment. Belonging to a group, social relatedness in a similar situation enhances engagement and is actually less awkward online. Getting your job-focused job seekers together for a workshop or for a resilience workshop, if they're in stream B or C or in DES, are brilliant ways. We've seen these activate and improve productivity and job outcomes. You can't do that. We've got to try and do it online. And it's very different, but it's actually less awkward online. Once people are on, they stick with it more. You'll find that about 70% of your participants won't have their camera on for the first sessions, but they get more and more used to it. But belonging to a group enhances engagement. Using autonomous language, so even if somebody must, should, and has to do something, if your case manager say you could, you may, or if you like, actually increases the likelihood of somebody actually doing what they need to in terms of compliance. It's because we've got a natural human trait of pushing against anything that erodes our autonomy. If we feel we're forced into something and we've got no choice, we'll deliberately be a bugger and push against it and try and do the opposite. So the final 4 tips here is intrinsic value in everything you communicate. You need to be looking at things from the perspective of your job seeker and say, oh, do this for me, or oh, this is a good thing. No, you need to say, I think you're going to find this fun, or you're going to learn about yourself, you'll improve your well-being. Just using those sorts of terms actually massively increases the sense of intrinsic value and engagement. It's a time of enormous cognitive overload. Keep things simple. As if a job seeker feels a little incompetent, they'll simply disengage. You won't be able to get them back again, especially in times of stress that we're going through at the moment. Having high quality imagery and videos help to draw in engagement and completion, and humor really helps. Sprawl and build theory shows that we engage with things that make us laugh, we're more likely to come back for more. So we can't be inappropriate, which is very difficult for me, but we've tried to build humor into everything we've been putting together and to be real, really, and to engage with people more. And finally, praise and reward. We love praise, even if we know it's someone being sycophantic. Neuro measures show that if somebody says, oh, you look great today, and even if we know we don't, our brain spikes up, our attention spikes, and we actually listen a lot more to the next thing that comes, and we feel a lot more positive. So saying little things wherever you can, such as well done, that's impressive, and nice work, really works with individuals wherever you can insert that into a conversation with a job seeker. And little things like we're really getting into micro-credentialing, digital badges, the completion of bits and bobs, because it has a great impact. That little acknowledgement or a sense of progress is key to well-being and proactivity in job seekers. Some of you may have noticed that I haven't actually answered how to get them to answer the phone in the first place. That's almost once you've got them engaged. And I suppose a lot of them will be allocated to you, and they'll be engaged to some extent in your jobs to retain them. But this is what the science says about how to get somebody to answer in the first place. You get 30.1% more answers when you send a text message or an email first, telling or asking the job seeker to be ready for a phone call at a specific date or time. So some case managers I've spoken to have said, well, what if if they know I'm calling, they'll know to avoid me. Well, this is the definitive answer. If they know you're calling, they're actually more likely to answer by 30.1%. So it's a significant difference. We mentioned using people's first name improves engagement, and here's the definitive figure. It improves engagement and response and turn-ups by 11% if you use somebody's first name in communication. People are significantly more likely to answer an incoming phone call if the number is from their state. That's way more than somebody in Melbourne answering a 02 number from New South Wales. or even a mobile number. If you can do it on a landline that's from the state, you get significant higher answer response. And people are much more likely to answer if the benefits of why they should set out, that's that intrinsic value thing we said just now, if the benefits are set out and you've already provided them with something helpful, even if it's just a leaflet or a worksheet, they think, okay, these people aren't so bad, I'm going to answer this. They've given me stuff. They're not trying to take stuff from me. Then finally, I love this study. I'll tell you what it's for in terms of did not attend. But it's asking your participant to enter and repeat back the appointment time to you, significantly increases their likelihood of actually making that appointment, and affirming the social norm of how many people are actually answering those calls. Doing those two things together reduced did not attend by 31%. And this was for colonoscopy appointments. So I think what you're offering isn't as bad as that. So that social norm is saying things like, oh, yeah, let's put you in for next week. Then, yeah, you can make that great. Yeah, because I'm having 90% of people, answering the phone at the moment. So it's really good to schedule you in there for a specific time. You see what we're getting at there. So let's round it off with 4 key staff considerations, which is really how to keep ECs motivated and give them the best chance of success in the current scenario. It's a very different game at the moment. They're kind of marketing to people who don't have to answer calls instead of being face-to-face. A resilience of staff is pronounced. Well-being generally through isolation, but well-being and resilience of our staff in an industry of 30 to 40% turnover and having to deal with things like call rejection and being on the phone all the time is pronounced. There's a bigger core caseload. There will be a longer term unemployed, which has always been more difficult to deal with, obviously. But what we found is that phone and Zoom seems to be delivering more effective one-to-ones. It turns out that notwithstanding the banter between James and I at the start of this, there's less small talk on the phone and on Zoom. So you actually get to the point and move people forward. And some ECs are saying they're finding some interventions more effective now in 15 minutes than what might have been 40 minutes sitting in their office chatting with someone. So 15 minutes on the phone or Zoom or FaceTime is actually proving more effective. But whatever, your staff need tools and support, and they need it right now to get ready for the potential tsunami of people coming in and just to feel supported. And actually talking with a lot of providers, you've actually been pretty brilliant in supporting the well-being of your staff and being considerate and improving communication and links with them. But here are 4 things that we've been up to at Isha House. This isn't to flog you anything, because most of what I'm going to tell you here, we're going to be offering to you for free and sharing with you. But it's just where our brain's been at, to give you inspiration to do stuff yourself if you want, or to reaffirm stuff that you're doing might be really working. But we were very early in getting out to people how to work productively and safely at home. There are 5 key facets to this, which we've put into a couple of animated digital interventions that we can send to you. I think they're about 8 minutes or so each, that your staff can just sit back and get a lot of insights on the resources I need, the practical things of dealing with kids at home, the well-being and resilience tips. A lot of you have been good at this, but if you don't want to wait for those isolation videos to come over, you can just click on that link there when we send you the PDF of these slides. It's got the section on this. And a lot of our clients have been asking us to provide resilience webinars for their staff. So that's first things first, settle your staff. And a lot of you have been great at that. Then one of the things I've been surprised at is a couple of managers, state managers and area managers, have said, look, the first session with our job seekers over the phone has been great. But after that, we don't know what to say to them. You know, I don't know why it's different. Maybe we were just doing compliance while they were sitting with us in the office, and we're kind of doing a lot of that before we phone them up now. But we need to know what to say to these job seekers. And how to deliver remote interventions, rather. And these are the key things that we put together. We studied and found 10 key tips from compliance to what you should say in the opener, and how to communicate over the phone and over Zoom and how it's different. to being face-to-face. We've put this infographic that's freely available to you, but it will be taken through in detail in a couple of weeks in another webinar. The inimitable Ben Conlon will be delivering to your teams. So this is what I started to go on about, is what to say and do with job seekers. What do we say to them after the first session or so? So we've worked really hard. Obviously at Isha House, it's linked to our assessment of work readiness. So we know what stage or probability someone's in of getting a job, and that tells us exactly what interventions to do. But providing these 3-page group sheets that are worksheets that are emailed out to job seekers, and then your staff can work through these. They've got about 7 interventions in each on what I do and say with that person. Never expect the job seeker to do these. Only about 10% do anything on this before you phone them up. But you don't have, obviously, you don't have to use the Isha House stuff. But if you've got stuff yourself, resources, tools, techniques, your ECs are going to need this, particularly so that having to whack phone calls to 10, 12 people a day just don't feel like Groundhog Day for them as well. And they're actually really productive and proactive. And what you'll see at the bottom there is a little clapperboard where people can click on that and they get these animated digital interventions that are all personalized to that job seeker stage of change in our stuff, but you providing these sort of videos that are light and easy on the eye, not too taxing on the brain, but they're deep psychological, evidenced interventions to move people forward. This is part of the automation I think the entire sector is going to need to move towards, just to, in terms of humanity, just to be able to support everyone, not least our own ECs. Finally, how do we keep ECs motivated? Generally, the key motivator for ECs is the ringing of a bell when a job seeker gets a job, or seeing the data and figures for sustained job outcomes. But they can be few and far between, and might even be worse in the current situation, or what we're going to face over the next couple of months. Something we did for the department, or on a bit of a brief I had from a DepSec on what we'd need for the new employment services model, is a demonstrable improvement in job seeker employability. We need to demonstrate things better than, say, Workstar, that might ask someone, hey, you're feeling more employable? Yes, brilliant, we'll tick that off. This is something where you can, it's objective rather than subjective. We were asked to try and solve this, which we did. This is our dashboard. And I'll get to the point of why I'm saying this, because you can do similar stuff yourself. But we came up with this, a probability score, somebody's likelihood of being employed in the next 12 months. This is done from machine learning from 35,000 job seekers. We tracked how they answered our questions, whether they got a job in the next 12 months and whether they sustained that job. I'm really gesticulating wildly here. I don't know why, you can't see me. But what it does is it comes up with their probability. So this person, even though they're a stream A down in Tasmania, they're actually a 39% probability, a likelihood in that 39th percentile of getting a job in the next 12 months. Now, when they redo the assessment in 4 months' time and they've gone up to 45%, that little progress is a great motivator to ECs. So please have small staged measured progress and movement forward that can be measured, so that ECs can actually see those rewards and those benefits and the impact they're having. It's turned into an immensely motivating thing that we totally didn't predict, and it wasn't why we did it. One of our fears was, say a job seeker went back 10%. The next time we assessed them in 4 months' time, they've gone down from 39% to 29%. Wouldn't that just be awful for the EC? Wouldn't that be really depressing and have the opposite motivating effect, demotivating effect? But it turned out no, because of the profile and the psychology of people in our sector. If an EC sees that that person has gone down 10%, instead of being demotivated by it, it puts them into rescuer mode. It puts them into, I need to get in touch with that person and fix it. Luckily for our survey, we can often tell the reason why they've gone down 10%. You know, it might be the family are mocking them more, or they've got financial issues a lot more. But it turns out that when the score goes up, it motivates ECs, and when it goes down, it motivates ECs. I'm sure you'll have your own ways of doing this and captivating that particular profile of your case managers. Also, what we've found in terms of motivation is having informal links, chats and pages. This is our WhatsApp page on Isha House, where we share one good bit every day, and then the rest of it, they mostly take the mickey out of me. But this is actually, we've found that this and getting online and having staff meetings, or even, this disappeared in the 80s and 90s, but it's been part of human history, is getting together on Friday after work and having a drink or a chat or a coffee and just bonding. That had all disappeared, but it's all come back a lot more. We've found that staff are a lot more together, a lot more bonded now than they ever were. And it's not just a blitz spirit of we're all in this together, that's some of it, but we're actually communicating informally more. And from our studies and other research, we know that having a colleague at work is the single greatest predictor of your likelihood of returning to work quickly if you suffer an injury or not dropping out in the first place. The resilience and well-being of workers is significantly enhanced if they've got a friend at work. And that's something that I think will be a massive positive for us coming out of this crisis, completely counterintuitive. So there you go, my friends. I've covered those three parts. And I guess if there are two key messages out of what we've just said is, first of all, support your ECs. Yes, we've got some resources there. I'll give you my email address if you want to request some of them, but you'll have your own resources. And hopefully what I've shared with you gives you some ideas and indication for what you're actually doing now. And automate all you can. That doesn't mean less servicing. It doesn't mean being less targeted, or it doesn't mean being less human, quite the opposite. But for your sake and your caseload's sake, you have to try and automate content, assessments, support and activities so that people can be getting on with stuff and feeling supported, and you can focus on the case person on the other end of the phone, your job seeker participant there. So that's it, my friends. We'll move into the scary Q&A session where I might not have answers for everything, and I'll start my video again. Yeah, fire any questions, but if you don't want to ask them publicly, you're more than welcome to just email me and I'll get back to every one of you.
Okay.
There you go, James.
Excellent, Darren. Thank you very much for that. There was a ton of information to absorb. There was some chat going on throughout that was, you know, really appropriate and pertinent. We do have a couple of questions, one in particular from Natasha. Does the overall program, assuming the, Natasha, you're talking about the Cortex Isha House product, does it have an aggregate to give a rating for an overall score or aggregate score for the EC? Oh no, I misconstrued that. Sorry, Natasha. I think you must be typing the rest of that question now. Okay, one where the percentage likelihood of going into work. So I guess the question is it calculated for the individual client, that score?
Yes, yeah, every individual based on the way they answer the questions. Look, I don't want to dwell on what Isha House does in particular as well, because I don't want to be using this as a selling it opportunity. But it's a brilliant capability of measuring an individual. I was a bit worried about it because you're labeling to an EC, that person has a 39% likelihood of getting a job in the next 12 months. So maybe park them and focus on the 72% person, even though they're a stream B.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked out that way. You know, ethically, I think the marketplace is mature enough to know what to do and know how to focus interventions on those individuals that need it the most. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, that, and obviously it changes over time, and the algorithm improves over time, all the time, with tracking outcomes.
Yeah, and Dan, I think, and I know you don't want to, you know, talk too much about yourself because you're so incredibly modest, but you've been working quite feverishly in the background to get some new tools and assets ready for launch. How is that progressing?
Yeah, they're done and they're up. The worksheets that are substantively personalised. Some of you will know where I got that phrase from, the per capita report recently. But it's something we've all been going on about for ages. Yeah, we're going to personalise support, but we often just don't have the time resources or insights into people's intrinsic motivation to actually be able to do that. And it's going to be even more difficult on the phone. You can't look someone in the eye, and our research shows that 64% of the time an EC can look someone in the eye and put them correctly into our 5 categories of whether they're really up for a job down to they're not at all.
Okay.
You can't do that on the phone, nor even on Zoom. And that's why at the moment Zoom is so taxing. When you've got 20 people, you're looking at their faces. It really is, it's called Zoom gloom or something. Your brain is messed up looking for little indicators that sometimes you see somebody's hands clench or their legs cross or they take a sharp intake of breath, meaning they're about to interrupt. It's just really draining, but you can't tell the telltale subconscious signs of reading people. So that's why I don't think we've ever been busier, because you can assess their intrinsic motivation and then know exactly what to do and say with them in 15 minutes that might have taken 3 40-minute sessions before. So it's been interesting, and people will get better at it with Zoom, better on the phone at telling little ticks and telltale signs, but it's going to be difficult. And I can't see us going back to all of our caseload has to come in for a face-to-face one-to-one in 2 months' time.
No, I think the point you made at the very beginning of your presentation was a lot of these conversations have been happening in the background with a lot of organizations already. You know, the digital transformation is part of their strategy, but they probably had a 12-month roadmap to get there, and this has just brought it forward significantly. So I think you're right. I think there will be a faster adoption of blended service model. We've got a good question from Paul. What ideas or suggestions, Darren, do you have to shift away from managing process and focusing on process and being more focused on the people, both, I suppose, the participants and job seekers and also the staff?
Well, look, it's not really a behavioural science approach, because obviously it's an organisational management thing, but we've been doing more and more work with work cover and rehabilitation firms, very big ones like Allianz and EML. And we've learned a lot because they've got a really similar job in trying to get people that are out of work, injured at work, mostly psychological, back to work. But these people are on like up to 90% of their salary, still trying to get them back to work, you know, so it's a tough job. And I think their rewards overall are work out per person more than we're getting in our sector. But they have different people doing it. They have case managers as specialists, highly trained, and they have administrators doing the paperwork. We tend to lump it all in at one. And you don't need a highly trained, highly skilled person doing the paperwork, where you can do it all in people's case notes and the ESS stuff, and then get case managers just focusing on liaising with somebody and doing what most organizations do, you know, updating their CRM with what happened with that person, and that feeds into the action plan and the compliance that you need automatically. So it's just interesting, you know, that how almost exactly parallel industry does things differently by segmenting roles a lot more, rather than expecting our ECs often to have to do everything, courses for all courses. I know not all providers are like that, but that's just one of the things we've spotted.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid point, and something that should promote further conversation and discussion. Is there are a lot of parallel industries that have already made the shift to a digital service model, not completely, and I think our market, our industry, has been in a lot of ways hamstrung by, you know, policy and regulations to move to that model, but that seems to be opening up now. And I think we can take inspiration and we can take guidance from those industries that have already gone through this. We don't have to forge a new path here. There's a lot of terrific evidence that we can borrow from and quickly adopt and apply. So, you know, part of these discussions is hearing from people like you, where you've seen it in another space, you've seen it working very, very well. And how do we actually bring that in and adopt it very, very quickly as part of this change, as part of this evolution. Now, there are no more questions coming through. So what we will do is we'll wrap it up there. Again, Darren, genuinely appreciate you giving us some of your time this morning. I know you're incredibly busy, but that was very, very useful and insightful. And the feedback we've had so far is really positive. So thanks again, mate.
Pleasure.
For everyone that attended, thank you for your time. As I said, we'll be circulating both the deck, the resources Darren talked about, and the recording of today's session tomorrow. And for those that are interested in staying connected through the remote control series, we have another session next week, which is about moving your service model online. I'll be talking with an expert in online content, Dan Fish from a company called Go1, and then a few other sessions over the next few weeks about helping ECs operate and do their job better when they are remote. So in the meantime, please everyone stay safe, be well. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak to you again soon.